Now here is a bill which has been gazetted a few days ago. It is called the Anti-Terrorism Bill. Never before, certainly and not during the last 2 decades, has there been presented to Parliament a piece of legislation so cynically, so totally destructive of the very essence of human liberty in our country. The predecessor of this bill was the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Both at the international level and within the country, there was the strongest possible pressure to remove that legislation from our statute books and to replace it with a statutory regime that is consistent with international standards. The Universal Periodic Review in Geneva and the Human Rights Committee, in no uncertain terms, have called upon the government of Sri Lanka to expunge this obnoxious Prevention of Terrorism Act from the body of statute law in Sri Lanka. What is proposed now is to substitute for it new legislation which is far, far more obnoxious than the predecessor. Once this is enacted, nothing will remain of human rights in our country. That is no exaggeration. I will explain very simply why this proposed bill is entirely inconsistent with what we have all taken for granted over the ages. The democratic culture and the enjoyment of democratic freedoms which we have all regarded as sacred in our country. Now, unfortunately, the custom has become established in Sri Lanka that whenever any kind of industrial unrest is anticipated, the invariable reaction of the government is to bring into force an essential services order. The list of essential services is added to every week. It is now strikingly wrong list. So if an employee acts in contravention of an essential services order, there are sanctions that attach to that defiance of the essential services order. The worker is sent on compulsory leave and runs the risk of losing his employment. He goes home. He has no means to support his family. The country has very painful memories of the application of these laws. During the period of President Jayawardena, more than 80,000 workers were sacked in this manner. And 152 of those workers committed suicide because they could see no future for themselves. They were not able to provide their families with the basic necessities of life. So they decided to put an end to it all. This is worse. Now it is not a question of losing your job and reducing your family to starvation. You are now regarded as a terrorist. Contravention of an essential services order constitutes an act of terrorism for the first time in the law of this country. So you are characterized as a terrorist, and sanctions applicable to terrorism are applied to you. What are those sanctions? 20 years in whatever little property you have managed to accumulate, a little house somewhere, a small sum of money in a bank account, all that becomes forfeit to the state. Even that you cannot leave to your families. That is the draconian legislation that is now sought to be presented to Parliament in the last week of April. Then, the definition that is embedded in this law, the definition of terrorism is so extensive, so vague, that it encompasses any form of organized activity against the government in power for the time being. Any form of organized political protest. And that becomes terrorism. Now this has a direct impact on the media. Any journalist who reports such an event is liable for supporting. The word used is support. What does support mean? If you make a favorable comment, then these are rights which should be safeguarded. So any photograph that is published, any comment that is made, any kind of media coverage or exposure will make the journalist liable to be dealt with not for any ordinary offence under the penal code or any other statutory regime, but as a terrorist under the anti-terrorism bill. And what happens to you, children and ladies, if you do this? You go to prison for 15 years. As a terrorist, you are only doing your job. You are doing neither more nor less than that. It is your job to inform the public of this country of what is happening. We have a right to information law in force in this country. According to your rights, in keeping with your conscience, you are doing what you conceive to be your proper and legitimate duty. But this law converts you into a terrorist. So that is the extent to which media freedom is stifled by the provisions of this legislation. Then there are amazing provisions, really provisions which defy belief. It is the detention order that was the epitome of the destruction of human freedom in this country. Issue a detention order that's entirely outside the purview of judicial review. There is no control or superintendence of any form by the courts of the Republic. You cannot approach a court of law, plead your case, and ask for justice. The detention order precludes all of that. Now, for the first time, scarcely believable, authority is conferred by this legislation not just on the President, but on all Deputy Inspector Generals of Police in this country to issue detention orders. You are taken out of circulation in society, nobody will see you or hear of you for a year, 3 months at a time. At the sole discretion of Deputy Inspector Generals of Police. Do you know how many there are? How many DIGs there are in this country? There are 63 of them. 63. So it's like the Chancellor's foot. Each one will act according to his own conceptions of what constitutes terrorist activity. There will be no uniformity, no consistency, even at the basic level. Now, it does require much imagination to figure out the extent to which that would jeopardize the very modicum of human freedom in this country. You are just put away at the whim and fancy of a police officer, Deputy Inspector General of Police. Then the Attorney General becomes an all-powerful omnipotent authority, which we very vigorously object, having regard to some things that have recently happened. This law enables the Attorney General to tell you, I am in possession of very cogent, compelling evidence against you. I can charge you tomorrow morning and send out an indictment. I am not doing it. I am keeping the sword of Damocles hanging over your head for 20 years. The Attorney General is empowered to do this for 20 long years. During that period, he can control many aspects of your life and activity, what you do, what you don't do, when you present yourself compulsorily at police stations, and also, most importantly, compulsory rehabilitation. You can be just sent off, very much against your will. Nobody asks you what your own wishes are. You go to a rehabilitation camp. All of this is not something that you have to put up with for a month or two or for a year. 20 years. This is the degree of danger that you are subject to. Then, the thoroughly obnoxious provisions relating to proscription orders and restriction orders. Proscription orders, the President has the untrammeled power to issue a proscription order which has the effect of making any organization in this country a terrorist organization. Any organization at all. There are no criteria, no guidelines, nothing to curtail or circumscribe the ambit of discretion. So once an organization is characterized as a proscribed organization, it cannot engage in any form of activity. All of that is compulsorily suppressed because it is treated as a terrorist organization. All it has done is engage in activity which the government of the day may not like. But it becomes a proscribed organization, a terrorist organization. Then there is provision for what are called the restriction orders. Restriction orders. The President has the authority to tell you, you cannot come here to cover this press conference. You can only travel between A and B, between your residence perhaps and your place of work. The restriction order will determine whom you can associate with, whom you can do business with. So, your legitimate activities, in your case, in pursuance of your profession, all that is controlled by the terms of the restriction order which the President is empowered to issue without any constraint whatsoever. Now, I say that this bill is state terrorism. It is a highly repulsive template for state terrorism. And whatever we have been accustomed to enjoying as part of a cherished historical legacy becomes very much a matter of the past. We can no longer live as free citizens, expressing our opinions, living as free human beings. None of it is possible from the day this thoroughly harmful legislation is enacted by the Parliament of State. Now, why is the government doing this? What is the motivation? Very simple, very clear. It is a government that fears the people. It is a government that fears public opinion with very good reason. Up to today, 87,000 consumers in this country have been deprived of water. They cannot pay their water bills. Water is an absolute necessity of daily life. They can't pay their water bills. They are therefore to manage without water. The consumption of electricity in this country within a month has come down by 20%. 20%. Can't afford to pay the electricity bills. So the child cannot study, with an electric light, must have an oil lamp. Now, when this is the position, it is no surprise that the government anticipates a very strong reaction. This bill sets the legal environment for a campaign of massive repression, the like of which we have never seen at any time in the history of the country. This bill is a legal instrument for repression, which is calculatedly put in place, foreseeing probable developments and reflecting the firm resolve of the government to put down those developments relentlessly with an iron hand. Now this is why we have said repeatedly, before these reforms are enacted, it is absolutely necessary to put in place a strong safety net for the more vulnerable sections of the community. The low-income earners, they must be protected. You do that first. There must be a sequence to it. It is only when you have provided them with the protection that they need that the implementation of these reforms should start. Do the first things first. There has been a great deal of talk, but no pragmatic action at all. No safety net, weak or not weak, or has been of any kind, has been put in place. So that is why the government sees that there is a dire need for draconian legislation of this kind. Now there is another parallel development, which is equally surprising and which we equally condemn. That is, the government is saying that when Parliament meets in the final week of April, the government wants Parliament to endorse this course of action, so that the responsibility is shared. It is not the responsibility of the government alone. Parliament becomes privy to and supportive of everything that is done. We are certainly not prepared to give the government a blank check to inflict so much pain, suffering, anguish on the people of our country. Parliament has no moral or ethical right whatsoever to endorse this program. And there is a very compelling reason for that. This Parliament was elected in August 2020 on a very definite program of work. There were explicit, unequivocal promises which we gave the people of our country, very clear promises. We said, you send us to Parliament and we will protect national assets as the highest conceivable priority. We will protect them, we will strengthen them, we will expand them, and we will hand them down to posterity. Now what are we doing now? Far from strengthening, expanding or protecting them, we are just selling them off. And among the institutions that we are selling off are institutions that are bringing enormous sums of money to the Sri Lankan exchequer, the treasury. These include the Insurance Corporation and Telecom. With regard to Telecom, apart from the financial implications, there are also grave security implications. The security of this country is put in jeopardy by alienating this asset and all the things that go with it to foreign companies. This is something that we must take seriously into account. Under the insurance company, you have nitrogas. So we are doing the exact opposite of what we told the people of our country we would do. We are making everything stand on its head. We are reversing everything, going back on every word that we told the people, and cynically breaking the promises on the basis of which the people of our country returned no fewer than 143 members of Parliament on a set program of work, not to do anything they wish to do. Then it doesn't stop there. To my mind, one of the most dangerous things is the restructuring of the domestic debt. Now, I myself, on several occasions, Dr. Nandana Veerasinghe, the government central bank, assured people of our country that this restructuring process will not include domestic debt. He said it categorically and clearly. Now he is going back on his word. He is now saying that domestic debt will also have to be restructured. We knew that all along. We didn't take seriously what he told us then. But now he is contradicting himself. He is saying domestic debt also has to be restructured. He is now saying it will start with the treasury bills. Now we want to know what will happen to the employees' provident fund. That is money belonging to workers in this country. Hard-earned money, their savings on the basis of which they propose to live and cater for their basic necessities in the evening of their lives after they have retired. They need that money for food, for medicine. What happens now? The value of that money will be reduced by approximately 1/3. Are we asked to support it? We certainly will not. Because that is opposed to the credo, the ethos of the platform on which 143 members of parliament were elected in August 2020. We cannot break that promise with this degree of skepticism in this cavalier fashion. Then the restructuring of the domestic debt will have a highly devastating effect on the stability of the local banking system in this country, especially the People's Bank, the Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank. These are institutions which we are pledged to protect. So, if we are going back on everything that we told the people at the time the current parliament was elected, we must have a fresh mandate. We can't do any of this on the basis of the existing mandate. There must be a fresh mandate. The best way of obtaining a fresh mandate is by dissolving the current parliament and holding a general election. Now the president has a legal power to do that under the constitution. Because the implementation of the IMF proposals cannot be done in a year or two. It will take the better part of a decade. Therefore, the right and proper thing to do is to hold a parliamentary election which will reflect the state of current public opinion, not the public opinion that existed in August 2020, after which a lot of water has flowed into it. But if the president is not prepared to do that, then he is duty bound. Compulsorily, he must hold another election. That is a local government election. He has no discretion in that matter. The constitution of this country requires him to have held that election before the 19th of March. He has not done so. And the Elections Commission is proving impotent to discharge their constitutional duty. Now our position is, at least hold the election that is imperative, which cannot be postponed lawfully. Hold the local government election, so that the people of our country will have the opportunity of expressing their opinion on the changes that are sought to be carried through. Changes which are already having a hugely deleterious effect on the quality of their everyday lives. Give the people that opportunity, consult them, find out what their view is. Without doing that, the present parliament has absolutely no ethical or moral right to endorse the program of action that is proposed, because if parliament does that, it is breaching the most sacred compact of all. That is the compact with the people of our country, the social contract. Whoever does that, we are certainly not prepared to contravene in that way solemn pledges that we give the people of our country on the basis of which the people elected us to parliament.